Hi guys, this is Geneva Perez and I'm going to discuss transportation problem using northwest corner rule maximization. So there are three steps in the northwest corner rule. The first step is to identify the northwest corner or the top left hand corner such that adjusted supply or demand is not zero. The second step is to allocate the maximum possible quantity to the chosen route. This quantity is the minimum or the supply available and the demand required. The maximum allocation will completely exhaust the supply or completely meet the demand or both. Address the supply and demand by subtracting the allocated quantities. And the last step is repeat step 2 till all the adjusted supply and demand became zero. Example problem. Mr. Suarez engages himself in a small buy and sell of customized female sandals as popularized by Ann Cortez. Mr. Suarez buys only three kinds of customized sandals from the three small business suppliers X, Y, Z. The profit per sandal of the same kind, although sold at the same price, is not uniform due to the different purchase cost and supply credit limits. The selling price of each sandal is 195 pesos. So the table below is the given supply credit and the estimated demand of the supplier X, Y, and Z. So before anything else, we're going to identify if the problem is a balanced or unbalanced problem. So in identifying if the problem is balanced or unbalanced is we need to get the total sum of the supply credit and the total sum of the estimated demand. So the total sum of the supply credit is 240 and the total estimated demand is 240. So since the supply credit and estimated demand is equal, so we can conclude that the problem is a balanced problem. So since the problem is a balanced problem we can now proceed in using the northwest corner rule. So the first step in the northwest corner rule is to identify the northwest corner or the top left hand corner such that the adjusted supply or demand is not zero. So this area here is the northwest corner or the top left hand corner. The second step in the northwest corner rule is to allocate the maximum possible quantity to the chosen route. This quantity is the minimum or the supply available and the demand required. The maximum allocation will completely exhaust the supply or completely meet the demand or both. Adjust the supply and demand by subtracting the allocated quantities. This is the area of the supply credit available and this area is the area of the estimated demand. So the minimum or the supply available and demand required is 55, which is the estimated demand. We will put 55 here. Since 55 completely meet the demand, which is 55, we will put zeros there and there, and after that we will put a line in this area. We need to adjust the supply and demand by subtracting the allocated quantities. So since allocated quantities is 55, so 55 minus 55, which is the estimated demand, is equals to 0. Next, we need to subtract the supply credit to the allocated quantity, which is 55. So 95 minus 55 is equals to 40. So we will put the 40 here. Since 55 plus 40 is equals to 95, we will put 0 there. And we will put line area there. The next is we need to completely meet the demand of the sandal, and by subtracting the estimated demand, which is 85, to the allocated quantity, which is 40. So 85 minus 40 is equals to 45. We will put 45 there. And since 40 plus 45 is equals to 85, we will put 0. And after that, we will put a line. To completely meet the supply credit is we need to subtract the supply credit to the allocated quantity, which is 45. So 80 minus 45 is equals to 35. We will put 35. And since 45 plus 35 is equals to 80, so we will put a line after. To completely meet the estimated demand of the sandal O is we need to subtract the estimated demand, which is 100, to the allocated quantity, which is 35. So 100 minus 35 is equals to 65. So we will put 65 there. We'll put line in this area. To completely meet the supply credit of the supplier Z is we need to subtract the supply credit, which is 65, to the allocated quantity, which is 65. So since 65 minus 65 is equals to 0, therefore we completely meet the supply of the supplier Z. And we will put line in this area. Since we already adjusted the supply and the demand to zeros, is we need to get the product of each allocated quantities, and after getting the product of each quantities is we need to get this total sum of the allocated quantities, and we can find the maximum profit of Mr. Suarez. These are the allocated quantities: 55 to 40, 40 to 45, 45 to 35, and 35 to 65. So this is the given solution. 150 times 55, which is the first allocated quantity, plus 120 times 40, which is the second allocated quantity, plus 115 times 45, which is the third allocated quantity, plus 125 plus 35, which is the fourth allocation, plus 125 times 65, which is the last allocated quantity. So after getting the product of each allocated quantity is we need to get the total sum of the allocated quantity. So 8,250 plus 4,800 plus 5,175 plus 4,372 plus 8,125 is equals to 30,722 pesos. Therefore, the maximum profit of Mr. Suarez is 30,722 pesos.